I'm already calling myself a liar for the last video because this one's my favorite. This one is my favorite. And I don't think the last three I have left to read can beat it. I don't. Welcome back, guys, to another Twisted Tales brain dump, review, recap, thoughts. So many thoughts. If you're new here, go check out some of the other Twisted Tale review things I've done. Granted, I don't try to go into too much depth. It really is just a brain dump. So when I rank them again, I will have a reference to actually size them up against each other. It is June 2nd today, so I still have 3 more books to reread in order to get the ranking video going, but I just finished Unbirthday. It's my favorite. I think I can't find any real flaw with it. The skill that it took to write this book. Now, I know Alice in Wonderland is hit or miss for a lot of people. For me, probably up until recently, I didn't really care about it. It kind of fell into the more princessy, girly Disney films, so it didn't hit my radar until, actually probably until I read this for the first time 2 or 3 years ago now. And that's when it was kind of like, oh, we could do things with this. So even though I'm not like an Alice in Wonderland stan, as you guys say in the day, can I put you there? I think we'll put you there for today. Yeah, for the moment. I have a couple Alice in Wonderland pins actually, so I can show you those. So we got some Cheshire Cats, we got some Alice, some Little White Rabbit, card hearts. Not a lot, but I was like, these speak to me. And that's only a recent thing, mostly because of this book. Even though obviously that's like classic Alice from Disney, which is not the classic Alice, but you get it. Before I jump into and just spiel all my thoughts out, let me read you guys the synopsis with the little blurb, one-liner here first. What if Wonderland was in peril and Alice was very, very late? It's a chonky. I wonder what it's going to talk about because a lot went down in this book. Alice is different from other 18-year-old ladies in Victorian Kexford, which is perfectly fine with her. She'd rather spend golden afternoons taking pictures with her trusty camera, chatting with her outrageous Aunt Vivian, or visiting the children in the square than receiving visitors or doing embroidery. Thank you very much. She's also interested in learning more about the young lawyer she just met, but only because he's rather curious. Not because he's rosy-cheeked and charming. But when Alice develops the latest photographs of her neighbors, strangely familiar faces appear instead. The Queen of Hearts, the Mad Hatter, even the Caterpillar. There's something quite off about them, even for Wonderland creatures. And in her self-portrait, Alice finds the most disturbing image of all. An imprisoned and injured, dark-haired girl begging for Alice's help. Returning to the place of nonsense from her childhood, Alice finds herself on a mission to stop the Queen of Hearts' mad military march across Wonderland, and to find her place in both worlds. But will she be able to do so before the end of time? I don't even want to talk about the blurb because I just want to talk about the book. So that's what the book tells you to expect. I don't think it's misleading in any way. I think it's a little bit slower on the uptake than the book is itself. The pace is very Wonderlandian, where it can happen in an instant or it can be time repeated 4 times over. Who knows? It's Wonderland. So we're going to shelf you so I don't gesture all over the place. Do we want that shelf? Yeah, that's fine. Starting off, Alice is now 18, and it's been 11 years since her initial visit to Wonderland. She doesn't quite remember things clearly. A lot of the details of Wonderland have been very logicalized or forgotten. It's not until this time, magically 11 years ago, when she's developing these portraits, and instead of seeing the people who she actually took the portraits of, she sees their Wonderland equivalent, such as the Mad Hatter and the Queen of Hearts, And this sets off a sort of obsession for her to find a way to get back to Wonderland, because not only is she gaining back these memories of these people, these characters, I guess, that she knew, but she takes a self-portrait of herself, and in that self-portrait is Marianne, who is her Wonderland alternate, but she's imprisoned and like bloody and beaten and clearly asking for help. Alice, in her still semi-naive, childish way, is like, I need to get back to Wonderland, tries all these different things, and it's not until she happens to run into this lawyer who she kind of fancies, but like also kind of not seriously, because boys are her sister's thing. They're sitting in the park under the tree where she initially fell asleep as a child and went to Wonderland, and it works. She falls asleep. She goes back to Wonderland, and she learns why she is too late, because the Queen of Hearts has taken over. Everything is painted red. There are regular, just like imprisonments, torture, etc. going on, because the Queen is trying to win the game. And Alice arrives just in time to help free the Mad Hatter, Dodo, and the Dormouse. So we get some of those characters that we recognize from the initial story right away, and her connection with the Hatter as well is very just like precious, because he's been losing his nonsense. So he's not only thinking more logically, but he's starting to look more normal and like proportioned, so he doesn't have such a giant head for his tiny body. He's actually like a regular man. And that's probably the most concerning part about it, is he's losing his nonsense and becoming too like normal. Whereas the Dodo, still kind of ridiculous in his own ways, but is super supportive of Alice. Like, he is there for her 100%. And initially they're like, we need to go find Marianne, because she is supposed to help us defeat the Queen of Hearts, be our leader. Like, and Alice is like, everybody cares about Marianne, like kind of jealous, right? Things don't go very well. Things actually go quite terrible. So the Queen of Hearts tactic here in this war game is collect all the toys, because whoever has the most toys at the end of time wins. So they're all assuming that her plan is to get all the toys and end time, essentially ending Wonderland. So Alice is freaking out, right? Alice is like, I can't lose Wonderland. Like, I may not be Marianne, but we can go find her. And when they can't get to Marianne because bad things happened, then they look to Alice, but Alice is like, I don't have any like knowledge. I don't know how to do any of this. Their hideout is actually attacked, and Alice comes back to the real world, the other world, as it were, which is England when she's in Wonderland, but she's back in England, in Kexford, immediately returning to Kexford. Certain Wonderland details are getting kind of miscommunicated in her brain. But she knows she has to find a way to get back. She knows she has to get back and help them. But also now she's actually catching on to real world problems, where the kids in the square that she goes to visit are like immigrants. And Katz himself, I think, is... Now, I would like to say, you can already guess who Kat's alternate is, because his name is Katz, K-A-T-Z. But we don't, Alice doesn't catch on to that right away. But Katz, he is doing some pro bono work for the immigrant families, because they're not getting supported, and they're especially now getting mistreated and sort of just falling to the wayside, because the guy who's trying to run for mayor in Kexford is more or less like an English white supremacist. An English, like, it has to be English blood, English families, English children, blah, blah, blah. So very easy to pin him for the villain, because the xenophobia is quite prominent. The other layer to sort of the conflict between the kids in the square and Kat's helping them out, and Alice like taking pictures of them and everything, is Alice's sister Matilda is more or less engaged. I don't think they're officially engaged, but they are basically engaged. To a young man who's part of the Ramsbottom xenophobic party. And she is also in support of that. So it's causing a lot of headbutting between the sisters as well. And they try to set up Alice with this guy named Coney, who is the White Rabbit's alternate, who's also just a turd. Like, xenophobia aside, he is pompous and just, like, he gets a pretty man description when we first meet him, but he's terrible. Do not fall for Coney. Do not like Coney. We don't like him. And he obviously doesn't like that Alice and Cats are even like in the same air. Okay, so he is not about that. So there's this conflict with Alice and her sister. Alice and this guy that her sister keeps trying to set her up with. The, trying to help the kids in the square. Trying to get back to Wonderland. All these things going on. And I will admit, when I first listened to this on the audiobook, it was a lot to take in. I know there were parts where I must have been doing something because it's just like, I did not remember that was a conversation. But the other reason where I would just steer you towards physically reading Unbirthday rather than audiobook is because the wordplay, for one, is fantastic. And it makes so much more sense, like Wonderlandian sense, when you read it. Like when they're using the play of word on pity, nonsense, or sense like coins. And also I think it, just the back and forth, the banter, and being able to trace the characters moving through Wonderland, or even dealing with these issues and kind of reading between the lines. Like, it's, for me, it was significantly easier and more enjoyable physically reading Unbirthday. Whereas with the audiobook, it might have been me. You have to lay against the trap, Howard. The audiobook, I don't think I got the full experience. But rereading this, I could easily see me picking this book up again, which is a huge compliment, because the only other books that I've like willingly reread outside of the reviews are the Tamora Pierce books that I have, because that was like my childhood, and I can still just cozy read those. So me being able to say I can pick this up and read it, not right now because I just read like 150 pages last night to finish it, but I could see myself picking it up again because it's just so rich, so well written. Like, you really have to work hard to connect all those different facets with the character alternates, with kind of the nonsensical train that Wonderland goes down, as well as the delicate but also like very raw handling of the xenophobia, the issues between levels of character madness, and just like the very subtle things that are in there. Braswell, you did it. This is the one. This is the, like, yes, what was mine? Fantastic. Does it have a few things where I'm like, but question, kind of pulled me out of the book? Yes. But it doesn't make sense, and it makes sense because it's Wonderland. It's great. And bonus point for having a basically slow burn romance that is also not the main plot. She knows what I want. She knows what I want. So this story had so many things that I love about reading, love about fantasy and fairy tales, and the twist in this, especially with the Queen of Hearts and the levels of violence that she went to in order to achieve her goals. Very nice. But it was also great that we didn't like focus so much on time spent versus the Queen of Hearts. Like, yeah, she is big bad in Wonderland, but there's so many layers to Wonderland that even getting to her is a struggle. And I think that's very important, rather than making this big showdown at the end and it's anticlimactic. Like, the quirkiness in like the side dialogue also, I think when you read it, because you get a lot of like thoughts or comments in parentheses, I think it's a lot easier to read that than just kind of hear it and you're like, are we thinking? Are we talking? Like, what is this? Doesn't quite translate as well for me in the audiobook, but physically, this, if you have any inkling to dive into Wonderland, this is the book. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Feel free to recommend other good Alice in Wonderland books in the comments, because I'm not opposed to reading them. I'm not. I'm trying to write a reimagining, retelling based on Sleeping Beauty, but it's a little bit more than that. So I'm all for it. And eventually I will finish these, so I'll be able to read other books. But I highly, highly, let's just put her in focus here. I highly recommend Unbirthday as not only a Twisted Tale, as an Alice in Wonderland, not just retelling, but like expansion, because there was so much work put into this and it worked out very, very well. I have no qualms that I can think of on my high of just finishing the book. I have no qualms with this book. Definitely check it out. If you've already read Unbirthday, let me know what you think. You didn't have to like it. I loved it. But we can discuss things because we're adults. And we can have nonsense discussions too. So Unbirthday is back on the shelf. I'm wearing my Sleeping Beauty shirt today. Not intentionally, but because it's what I picked out of the closet. So I think the next Twisted Tale I will dive into is... Excuse me. As Old as Time, which is the Beauty and the Beast Twisted Tale. I know this one's also as an audiobook, and I think I can definitely make progress in it if I feel like I don't have time to physically read it. But we're getting there, guys. We are getting there. So I'm gonna get to reading this, maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. And that is all for my little brain dump on this video. If you guys did have questions or if I didn't touch on something, definitely let me know, because like I said, these are more or less brain dumps just so I remember where I stand when I get back to reviewing everything. But if you're curious how my first ranking turned out, there is a video. It is like an hour and a half, 2 hours long, where I ranked the first 10. And it was rough. Though the next video is not going to be 2 hours long, for the record. But I think Unbirthday is holding the #1 spot right now. So I'm curious where it ranked before. I've not looked at it, and I don't want to look at it till after I do the ranking, so I can be like, oh, I put that there. But we'll see. You guys can go check it out, though, and see what my thoughts were, and see if I've changed, because I think I have on quite a few books. But I'll see you guys in the next one for As Old as Time. Thanks again for watching. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, do the thing that the YouTube asks you to do. I'm cool with whatever, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.